Okay, so we're diving deep today.
Yeah, a deep dive it is.
And today we're looking at some pretty powerful stuff.
We are.
We have these excerpts from a romance novel
Mm-hmm.
that's in progress called The Reason Why I Sing.
Right.
And it's by author Blaize on Fire.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we have some background on Blaize herself, too.
Uh-huh.
And then to top it all off,
Yeah.
we have a look at the cover art.
We do. We've got a good set of materials here.
Yeah, and, you shared this stuff with us, and we're super, excited to dive into it.
Absolutely.
I'm particularly curious about the process of writing a romance novel.
Right.
Like, what goes into that?
Yeah, what are those key elements?
Exactly. And then also, like, what are some of the core themes that we're seeing emerge, even in these early drafts?
Yeah, especially at this stage.
Yeah. And then, of course, I always love learning more about the author behind the work.
Right, getting to know the person behind the words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's see what we can unpack together.
All right, so let's start with author Blaize on Fire.
Okay, sounds good.
She seems like a very dedicated writer. I mean, she's already published multiple books.
Wow.
And then on top of that, she's also published coloring books.
That's cool.
And journals, all on Amazon.
Really prolific.
Yeah, and she's actively working on projects across different genres.
Yeah.
So it's clear that writing is not just a hobby for her. It's like it's a real passion.
Right. A true calling.
Yeah, and it sounds like it started way back in the second grade.
Oh, wow. So young.
Yeah, with poetry.
Interesting.
But the real, turning point, it seems like, the genre that really captivated her was romance.
Yeah.
And that started even younger.
Really?
She was only 6 years old
Wow.
when she first discovered romance novels
Huh.
on her mother's bookshelf.
That's fascinating. It makes you wonder how that early exposure to romance might have shaped her understanding of the genre and the kinds of stories she's drawn to tell now. Yeah, it's like the seeds were planted so early. Right.
And she clearly explores other forms of writing, too.
Yeah.
We see poetry, self-help,
Right.
even paranormal fiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the fact that romance remains this central passion,
Yeah.
it really suggests that that's like the emotional core
Right.
of so much of her work.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that she directly engages with her readers, too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, she offers up her email and her Facebook page right there in the materials.
Okay. Yeah.
Which suggests a real desire to connect
Uh-huh.
with her audience and to hear their feedback.
Yeah. I love that. I love when authors do that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So speaking of making an impact, let's talk about the cover art.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
For this book, The Reason Why I Sing,
Okay.
it's pretty striking.
Yeah, dear.
The title is really prominent.
Yes.
And then her name, Blaize on Fire, is right underneath in this very distinct font.
Yeah.
But for me, it's that central image that really grabs you.
Yeah. What do you see there?
Well, it's abstract. Yeah, it's not a literal image or anything.
Right. But right at the heart of it all is this intensely vibrant red heart.
Oh, yeah, I see that now.
Right. And I think about how visual elements, they really function in storytelling.
Oh, totally.
And the cover is often that first point of contact.
Right, that first impression.
Yeah, with a potential reader.
Exactly.
And that central red heart, I mean, it immediately signals to me romance genre.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's the way it's depicted that's so interesting. It's abstract and it's surrounded by these swirling flames.
Okay, yeah.
And you see these fiery oranges and yellows and reds.
Yeah, really warm tones.
Yeah. And then they transition to cooler purples and blues.
I see that.
At the edges.
Interesting.
I don't know. What do you think that means?
Well, I think you could interpret that as a hint.
Okay.
That this love story, it's not just sweet and light.
Right.
It's got some real passion to it.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps even some internal conflict. Or external challenges that are creating both heat.
Yeah.
And those moments of coolness or sadness.
Right. Like some turbulence.
Exactly. It suggests a complexity, that goes beyond a simple happily ever after.
Exactly. And it definitely feels like it's setting the stage for something.
Right.
With some potential bumps along the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So you also share the very beginning of chapter 1 with us.
Yes, I did.
And it wastes no time in pulling you into this tense situation.
It really doesn't.
We immediately meet Juliet.
Yeah.
And right from the get-go, you can just sense that she's carrying this weight.
Right. There's this underlying tension.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of authors will start a story in media res.
Yes, that's a common technique.
Right in the middle of a moment of conflict or unease.
Yeah.
It immediately hooks the reader.
It does.
And it creates this sense of urgency.
Absolutely. And here we are right after 3 a.m.
Oh, wow. Late night.
Juliet is in bed with her newborn baby girl. Lovey, her other 3 daughters, are asleep nearby. But her partner Lamar is out. Now, the official reason, the one he's given Juliet, is that he's helping his cousin with a political campaign.
Right.
But Juliet's internal monologue, it reveals this deep suspicion that he's actually with another woman.
Oh, man. So there's already this, like, sense of distrust.
Yeah, exactly.
In the relationship.
Yeah.
And then we even get the name Brittany Bellagrassi.
Yeah, the other woman.
Right. And you can just feel Juliet's anxiety and hurt.
Yeah, she's clearly in a lot of pain.
Yeah. And she remembers this distinct shift in Lamar's behavior.
Oh, really?
After he accepted Brittany's friend request on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
So it was like this small digital interaction.
Right. Seemingly insignificant.
Right. But it clearly had these huge real-world consequences. And then there's that detail about Brittany's information.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
On Facebook. This really crude comment aimed at Juliet.
Yeah, it was pretty harsh.
Yeah, about her baby daddy.
It's just such a specific and modern detail.
It is.
You know, it really grounds the story in a contemporary context.
Right. It makes it feel very real and relatable.
Yeah, and it highlights how social media can just become this, like, battleground in relationships.
Absolutely.
And then we see that Juliet has called Lamar 15 times.
Wow.
And texted him 35 times.
And no response?
None of them were answered.
Ouch.
Which just really underscores her feelings of being ignored and disrespected.
Yeah, she's feeling completely dismissed.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It is. And what's striking is how the author immediately establishes Juliet's vulnerability.
Right.
And her isolation, even though she's surrounded by her sleeping children.
Yeah.
She's emotionally alone. Grappling with this suspicion and this lack of communication from Lamar. And the way she's relying on these, like, digital breadcrumbs.
Right.
The Facebook requests, the About section, the unanswered calls and texts, it really speaks to this contemporary form of relationship conflict.
Right. It's a betrayal.
Yeah, it's like this modern way of, like, detective work almost.
Yeah, it's like digital detective work.
Yeah.
And it's a really subtle way of building tension and revealing character motivations without needing, like, lengthy exposition or backstory.
Yeah, it just pulls you right in.
Yeah.
And then the tension just, like, skyrockets when Lamar finally comes home.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Around 3:43 a.m.
Okay, so really late.
Yeah. And his initial interaction with Juliet is just jarring.
Yeah, there's no warmth there at all.
None.
Yeah.
It's like there's no tenderness or concern for her or their newborn baby.
Yeah, he's totally checked out emotionally.
Instead, it's just immediate verbal abuse, arrogance, and this demand that she open the door.
Right. He's not even trying to be nice about it.
And even his greeting is just so dripping with insincerity.
What does he say?
Hey, baby, you were waiting up on me, huh?
So sarcastic.
Right, like no empathy whatsoever.
None.
For what Juliet might be going through.
That initial dialogue is so crucial, you know?
Yeah,
because it immediately establishes Lamar's character
okay.
and the power dynamics in this relationship.
Right.
His dismissive language and the immediate demands, answer me when I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
They reveal this controlling and disrespectful nature.
Right.
It sets this really threatening tone and foreshadows those darker elements that are coming.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a great example of how authors can use dialogue to efficiently convey so much about a relationship dynamic.
Totally. And what follows is just incredibly difficult to read.
It is. It takes a dark turn.
Juliet tries to avoid a confrontation because she doesn't want to wake the children.
Okay.
So she tries to walk away. But Lamar, he physically stops her.
Oh, no.
He grabs her by her braids and throws her onto the bed.
Oh, my gosh.
The baby, thankfully, stays asleep.
Okay, at least there's that.
Yeah, it's like this small moment of relief.
Right.
Amidst this escalating violence.
Yeah.
But then Lamar tries to kiss her. And she refuses.
Yeah.
And he physically and sexually assaults her.
That's terrible.
And he ignores her repeated no's.
It's just a stark and disturbing portrayal of power and violation.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful example of how fiction can just confront these difficult realities.
It is.
Like the author doesn't shy away from depicting this act of violence.
Right.
And it immediately establishes the danger that Juliet is in.
Yeah.
And even after the assault, Lamar makes this callous comment.
Oh, what does he say?
About her pussy being exquisite.
Oh my gosh.
And then he follows that up with another threat.
It just shows his complete lack of remorse
Right,
and his continued dominance over her.
Right. And it paints this picture of a deeply toxic and abusive relationship.
It does.
And you just feel Juliet's immediate sense of disgust and violation.
Yeah.
And then there's this small but incredibly telling detail.
What's that?
Her relief that she had her tubes tied.
Oh, wow.
Like that single thought speaks volumes.
It does.
About her desire to not have any more children with Lamar. And her feeling of being trapped.
Right. Like she's looking for any way to protect herself.
Yeah, it's just a gut-wrenching moment that reveals so much about her inner world.
It is, and it's a very efficient way for the author to convey Juliet's sense of desperation and her attempts to regain some control over her own body and future in this oppressive situation.
Yeah, it adds so much depth to her character.
It does.
And then the next morning brings a confirmation of Juliet's worst fears.
Oh, no.
She checks Lamar's phone.
Okay.
And she finds proof of his infidelity with multiple women.
Wow.
Including these explicit text messages with Brittany.
So he was with her.
Confirming that they met up the night before.
Yeah.
So it solidifies her suspicions.
Right.
And just intensifies her pain and her sense of betrayal.
It's like adding salt to the wound.
Right. Even though she probably wasn't that surprised.
Yeah. I mean, she already suspected it.
Right. But to see that concrete evidence, it just really deepens the emotional wound.
Right. It takes her from suspicion and anxiety to, like, the undeniable truth.
Exactly.
Of Lamar's betrayal.
Yeah, and that can often be such a pivotal moment for a character.
Yeah.
It forces them to confront the truth and maybe consider what they're going to do next.
Yeah, how they'll move forward.
Exactly. And even though Juliet is going through all of this emotional turmoil, she's still trying to maintain a sense of normalcy for her daughters.
That's so tough.
And we meet them all briefly.
Yeah.
Victoria's the oldest.
Okay.
And she sounds very protective of her mom.
Ah.
And she already doesn't like Lamar.
Okay.
And then there's Carmen, who's kind of used to Lamar being around.
Right.
But she still misses her biological father.
Okay.
And then there's Lori.
Yeah, the youngest.
And she seems to have this almost intuitive understanding.
Wow.
Of her mom's distress.
That's interesting.
And it's really interesting how the introduction of these children and their individual reactions to Lamar just adds so much depth to the narrative.
It shows how his actions are impacting the whole family, not just Juliet.
Yeah.
Victoria's protectiveness,
right.
Carmen's divided loyalties, and Laurie's emotional sensitivity.
Yeah.
They all create this complex family dynamic
They do.
that's under so much stress.
Right.
And it also highlights Juliet's role as a mother who's trying to shield her children from what's really going on.
Yeah, and even in this really heavy atmosphere, the kids have these very specific requests for breakfast.
Oh, that's cute.
Right? It's like Publix tea.
Okay.
Buttered toast with orange juice. Hot cocoa.
Yeah, and those details are so powerful.
They are.
Because they ground the story in this everyday reality of family life. It reminds us that even when things are really bad, these routines and small comforts, they still persist.
They do.
And Julia, even after everything she's been through, she fulfills these requests, which just shows her commitment to her children.
And those seemingly mundane details, they really humanize the characters.
They do.
And create this sense of authenticity.
Absolutely.
It's the specificity of those requests, like Publix tea, that adds this layer of realism that allows the reader to connect in a deeper level.
Totally.
And it underscores Juliet's role as this nurturing mother in the face of so much hardship.
Exactly.
But then Lamar comes back and disrupts this really fragile sense of normalcy.
Oh, no.
He yells at Juliet to bring him the baby. And then he demands that she take the girls to school while he showers.
Wow. So controlling.
Right. Like no regard for her emotional state for the needs of their children.
And his actions just reinforce that power imbalance. And his complete lack of consideration for Juliet. He expects her to cater to his demands. Even after what happened the night before.
Exactly.
Which really demonstrates his entitlement.
It does.
And emphasizes just how trapped she is.
Yeah. But then there's this brief moment of connection. When Juliet is taking the girls to school. They share some affection in the car.
Oh.
You know, this small reminder of their bond as mother and daughters. And then there's this friendly exchange with Coach Rome. At the school drop-off. Just a nod and a wink. But it's this tiny glimpse of positive human interaction outside of this toxic home environment.
And those moments are so important.
They are.
because they offer a glimmer of hope and suggest that Juliet isn't totally alone, that there might be support out there. Even that little interaction with Coach Rome, it hints at potential sources of support or a sense of community outside of her family situation.
And it provides such a contrast, you know, to the darkness of her home.
Totally. And then the chapter ends with Juliet returning home. And this feeling of dread just washes over her at the thought of facing Lamar again, even though she knows he's probably leaving for work soon. But that feeling of apprehension just hangs there.
It does.
And it leaves you with this really strong sense of her emotional burden.
Yeah, it's heavy.
And ending the chapter on that note, it's so powerful because it leaves the reader with this lingering sense of Juliet's vulnerability and the oppressive atmosphere she's living under. And it creates this natural curiosity about what's going to happen next.
Like, how is she going to navigate this?
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the reason why I sing, you know, we've explored Blaize on Fire's passion for romance and her diverse writing background. We've talked about the imagery of that cover art.
Yeah, it was cool.
We've delved into this really intense.
Intense is a good word for it.
And unsettling opening of chapter 1. And we've met Juliet, who's facing this just profound betrayal and abuse and this desperate situation with Lamar.
So based on what we've seen so far, our listener might be wondering a few things. Like, where will Juliet's journey take her? Will she find the strength to break free from this abusive cycle? How are her daughters going to be affected by the turmoil they're experiencing? And what are the deeper themes about love and betrayal and resilience and maybe healing that this novel is going to explore?
Those are great questions. In this beginning, it's so raw.
It is.
And emotionally charged. It just underscores the power of storytelling. To confront these complex and often painful aspects of relationships.
It does.
It offers a glimpse into these difficult realities that some people face.
And it invites us to consider these experiences with empathy and understanding.
Absolutely.
So thinking about this intense introduction, it really makes you ponder the title. The Reason Why I Sing. What is that reason?
What is she singing about?
Is it a song of sorrow? A cry for help? Or maybe ultimately a powerful melody of triumph and self-discovery.
I love that.
And this is just the first step in Juliet's story. But based on what we've seen, it promises to be a really compelling and resonant journey.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither.